Ethan never planned on kissing his best friend's brother in the middle of a cheap diner parking lot. But then again, life had been one bad decision after another lately, so maybe this was just another flame to add to the wreckage. Caleb looked at him like he was both the cruelest mistake and the only reason to keep breathing. That was the dangerous part. Ethan couldn't walk away. Not anymore. The story began weeks earlier, when Ethan had nothing but 2 duffel bags, overdue rent, and a fractured sense of pride. He was the kind of guy people crossed the street to avoid tattoos he didn't regret, a permanent scowl carved into his face, and a habit of pushing people away before they could hurt him. The only person who hadn't left yet was Caleb, though technically, Caleb should have been the last person to show up at his door. Caleb was the golden boy, soft laughter, patient tone, and eyes that always saw too much. He was studying social work, which Ethan found ironic because who in their right mind would try to fix him? Yet Caleb did, not by forcing himself into Ethan's chaos but by sitting in the silence with him, unafraid of the storms inside his chest. "You need a place?" Caleb had said that night, voice low, almost trembling. "Stay with me, just until you figure things out." Ethan wanted to laugh, to spit out some sarcastic remark, to prove he didn't need anyone. But when he looked at Caleb, really looked at him, saw sincerity carved into every line of his face. And against all his instincts, Ethan said yes. That was the beginning of what they both pretended was temporary. By day, Ethan kept his armor on, cynical, untouchable. The guy who slept on Caleb's couch and muttered thanks without ever meeting his eyes. By night, when the house grew quiet and the world outside dimmed, cracks appeared. Conversations stretched longer. Shoulders brushed when they both reached for the same cup of coffee. The silence between them, wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting. Caleb had a way of breaking him without saying much. The way he'd pause before speaking, as if choosing his words carefully, as if Ethan's heart was something fragile. The way he offered warmth without expecting anything in return. It infuriated Ethan, terrified him. It made him ache. Because deep down, Ethan knew he couldn't be just a temporary project for Caleb. And yet, the more he wanted him, the more he tried to convince himself this wasn't love. But Caleb had already fallen. One late night, after hours of studying, Caleb found Ethan sitting on the porch steps, smoking a cigarette, his shoulders hunched against the cold. "You ever think about what you want?" Caleb asked softly, as if the night itself might shatter under the weight of the question. Ethan exhaled smoke, watching it disappear into the darkness. "Wanting gets you hurt. That's not an answer." Ethan smirked, bitter. "It's the only one I've got." Caleb sat beside him, their knees brushing. Neither moved away. Ethan's pulse betrayed him, quickening under Caleb's quiet persistence. He had been alone for so long, and here was someone refusing to let him drown in it. "Maybe," Caleb whispered, his voice almost lost to the night, "you just haven't had the right reason to want yet." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan should have walked away, lit another cigarette, buried the longing clawing at his chest. Instead, he turned, and that was the first time their eyes locked too long, too deep, something raw and terrifying sparking between them. He didn't kiss him then, but he wanted to. God, he wanted to. And it only got harder to resist. Days blurred together, Ethan pretending nothing was shifting, Caleb trying not to show how much he was falling. But the truth was in the way Caleb lingered in the kitchen doorway just to watch Ethan cook eggs in the morning. The way Ethan found excuses to fix things in the apartment so Caleb wouldn't have to. The way their laughter sometimes slipped out too easily, catching them both off guard. The tension grew unbearable. One night, the storm broke. They were at that diner, the one that never closed, the one where Caleb liked to drink milkshakes at 2 a.m. Ethan had driven him there after another long study session, telling himself it was just to get Caleb out of the apartment, just to kill time. But when Caleb teased him about how grumpy he always looked while secretly sneaking fries off his plate, Ethan snapped. Not in anger, in surrender. He grabbed Caleb's wrist, pulled him outside under the flickering neon, and kissed him like he had nothing left to lose. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was messy, desperate. Every wall Ethan had built crashing down at once. Caleb froze for half a second, shocked, but then his hands slid up Ethan's chest, clutching his jacket, pulling him closer like he had been waiting for this moment just as long. When they broke apart, breathless, Caleb whispered, "This isn't temporary for me." And Ethan's heart nearly stopped, because he had spent his whole life convincing himself love wasn't for people like him. And now, in Caleb's eyes, he saw the terrifying possibility that maybe just maybe was. Ethan never thought peace could feel this fragile, like a glass he was afraid to drop. The morning after everything between them broke open, he woke to find Caleb asleep beside him on the couch. The blonde's head rested against Ethan's shoulder, his breathing soft, steady, unguarded. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel like running. He just sat there, letting himself exist in a world where someone could lean on him and trust he wouldn't move away. But reality always came back. Caleb's family, his future, the whispers of people who would never understand Ethan knew all of it waited outside their fragile bubble. He didn't deserve him. That thought clung to him like smoke. Caleb noticed. Of course he did. One evening, when Ethan was fixing the kitchen drawer just to avoid conversation, Caleb crossed the room and laid a hand on his arm. "Stop punishing yourself," he said gently. Ethan froze. "I'm not, you are." Caleb's eyes held him like a mirror. "You think I don't see it? Every time you laugh with me, every time you look at me like you're already planning to leave, Ethan. I see you. And I don't want temporary. Not by day, not by night. I want you. All of you." The words cracked something open. Ethan dropped the screwdriver, his hands trembling. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Yes, I do," Caleb said. "I'm asking for the truth. For the part of you that's scared. The part you think no one could love. I'm here, Ethan. I'm not walking away." Ethan wanted to believe him, but all he could whisper was, "What if I ruin you?" Caleb stepped closer, close enough that their breaths mingled. "Then ruin me, but don't lie to me. Don't lie to yourself." And just like that, the dam broke. Ethan pulled him in, kissing him like confession, like surrender, like he had no choice left but to fall. Caleb didn't resist. He melted into him, holding Ethan's face like he was something worth protecting. It wasn't passion that made Ethan shake, it was relief. Relief that someone saw his darkness and didn't flinch. The weeks that followed were not perfect. They fought. Ethan pushed. Caleb pushed back. There were nights Ethan disappeared to the porch, smoking under the stars, convinced Caleb deserved someone easier. And every time Caleb found him. Sometimes he didn't say a word. Sometimes he just sat down, shoulder to shoulder, reminding Ethan without speaking that he wasn't alone. The world outside still judged. A neighbor muttered slurs under their breath. Caleb's brother confronted him, demanding why he'd waste his time on someone like Ethan. And Ethan, ready to walk away to spare Caleb the pain, was stopped cold when Caleb said, "He's not a mistake. He's my choice." That was the moment Ethan realized love wasn't about deserving. It was about choosing, and Caleb had chosen him again and again. The climax came one rainy night when Ethan's past slammed into him like a truck. An old friend, drunk and bitter, cornered him outside the bar, spitting venom about how he'd always been a screw-up, how he'd dragged Caleb down with him. Ethan didn't fight back. He just stood there, letting the words hit him like fists, because part of him still believed them. Until Caleb appeared. Until Caleb stepped between them, his voice sharp, unshakable. "You don't get to define him. You don't get to tell me who he is. That's mine to decide." His friend sneered, stumbling away into the rain. And in the silence that followed, Ethan collapsed against the wall, his chest heaving, the weight of years pressing down. Caleb crouched in front of him, soaked to the bone, whispering, "You're not broken. You're not temporary. You're mine, Ethan. If you'll let me be yours." And for the first time in his life, Ethan believed it. The ending was quiet, not dramatic. That's what made it powerful. A month later, they stood on the rooftop of Caleb's building, the city humming below, the sunrise painting the sky in gold. Ethan turned to him, his tattoos glowing faintly in the light, his hand reaching for Caleb's. He still wasn't good with words, still stumbled when it came to feelings, but this time he didn't run. "I don't know how to be permanent," Ethan admitted, voice rough. But I want to try. With you. Caleb's smile broke through like sunlight. That's all I've ever wanted. They kissed, slow and certain, with the whole city waking beneath them. The fear didn't vanish, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that Ethan finally understood. Love wasn't about being unscarred. It was about standing in the wreckage together and choosing each other anyway. By day, they still went about their lives' work, school, the endless grind. But by night, Ethan no longer felt the need to leave. He stayed. He belonged. And for the first time, home wasn't a place. It was Caleb. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.